All right, let me just go ahead and get started, man. I have no friends. So this video is a bit of a personal rant, and honestly, I don't have anybody in my personal life that I can really confide this in. So I'm kind of screaming down the void of the internet and seeing if the message resonates with anybody. So at least in this current moment in my life, I don't think I have anybody I can call a friend. That may be hyperbolic. I do have friends, of course, but what I really mean is I feel like in a pinch, there's no one that I could really turn to confide in about anything. And what really kind of made me want to talk about this is some recent clips I'd seen from streamer Blackboy Max.
Guys, I am a loser. I don't do shit except sit on my couch and study shit and plan shit in my free time. I don't talk to people. It's bad. I'm gonna change that. Y'all gotta help me make friends.
Hey, yo, bro, you know what I want to say, bro? Yeah. Thank you for being my friend, bro. I don't got no friends. I'm not gonna lie.
What type of emotional shit you on?
I don't got no friends. That's not lonely. This is my first time going. This is actually my first time since I left. Low-key, being on streamer today. That doesn't make music, yeah.
Now, to be honest, a lot of the things that he's saying in his clips, I heavily resonated with, and I just kind of wanted to get that stuff off my chest too. Recently, I found it really hard to build and maintain connections with people. So I'm in my early 20s, and at this stage in my life, I'm probably the loneliest I've ever been. Now, I will be frank, I am an introvert. I'm not exactly the most social person in the world, but I've always had friends throughout my life to kind of keep me company. And I've never been the most vocal person about my inner struggles or what I'm going through. But in a pinch, I always knew that I could have someone in my corner to kind of fall back on, if need be. And within the last couple of years, I have kind of been, resorting to talking to the people close to me about whatever it is that I'm going through, sharing as much as I'm comfortable with, that kind of thing. But 2025 has been the most isolating year of my life up to this point. I've always kind of been slightly self-conscious about the way that I come off to people, out in the world. So once I graduated college, I ended up, finding a job and working there. And while I was working that job, certain things kind of got picked up on my radar. I consider myself a fairly respectful person. I'm not someone who's really looking to start problems or anything. I try to be as polite to everyone as I can. And usually that results in people being nice to you back, But because I kind of overthink and look really deep into things, I always got this sense that people only end up being nice to me as a necessity to, get the job done, or just to not cause problems, in a workplace. In this particular situation, it didn't really bother me too much, but I did kind of notice the signs that I picked up on throughout my life. So the people in this workplace would be really, really nice to me and would always talk to me and conversate with me. Most people were pretty nice. Of course, there are some rude people, as you have in any workplace, but I kind of got a hint that maybe they felt a different way about me when I started to notice that everyone in my workplace, all of my coworkers, were in group chats with each other. And I was never mad. And one of the coworkers that I was really cool with actually accidentally brought the group chat to my attention, not knowing that I wasn't aware that it existed. So I didn't really make a big deal about it, but obviously in the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh, these people don't really rock with me. I kind of kept it pushing because I'm not really at work to socialize, but it always stuck in the back of my head that outside of, the older coworkers, people in their 30s and 40s, I was the only one in their early 20s who was left out of these group hangouts, and they would hang out together and stuff. And I've kind of always felt this othering feeling throughout my life. In specific circumstances, even when I had friends, I never felt like I truly fit into a group. And it's not like the groups ever hated me, but I just always felt like, and I never felt like these groups had any ill intent towards me. Like they were my friends, you know, we would get along. But that overthinker in my brain would always, you know, kind of analyze the group and realize I stick out a little bit. And because of that, when it came to like deep issues that would bother me, rarely in my life were there people that I would tell my problems to. I've always had a hard time really opening up like that to people. I've always been a person who kind of keeps his issues to himself. I've always been very private. I don't really like to disclose that stuff. And so that's always caused a bit of separation between me and others, but I don't think that's the main reason. One thing I will say though is that throughout my life, I've noticed that a lot of my female friends and, you know, my girlfriends have always had easier times opening up and being well received with their problems. And that's something that's always stuck out to me. So there were moments in my life where I did have friends where I felt like I could truly open up to. And I would bear out everything that was on my mind at the moment in time, everything that was bothering me. And sometimes it was really, really serious. But I feel like in the end, all of these conversations ever resulted in was these people slowly distancing from me. It's not like I told these people anything heinous or anything, but I kind of keep to myself because I feel like people don't want to hear all that. As sad as it is to say, I feel like that's the truth. At this point in the video, if it's not really making sense at all, I apologize. I'm going to try to put this ramble together. Typically when I make videos on like other channels I have, it's usually more scripted stuff. So this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I'm not really that used to ad-libbing on a video, so I'm kind of just playing this by ear and seeing how it goes. So that kind of led to me keeping a lot of things to myself. And it was very recently, within the last couple of years, where someone came into my life that I really truly felt I could tell everything to. To a certain extent, I've always kind of hidden. I feel like everyone does this. Everyone kind of wears different masks depending on the groups that they're around, or depending on the people that they're around. To me, I feel like I've always kind of worn a mask 24/7. Like I've never really given anybody a super deep look into who I am as a person. So then this person comes into my life, and for the first time, I kind of really show this person the entirety of like who I am. And everything was good. You know, she kind of accepted me for who I was. And, you know, she would tell everything to me, and I accepted her for who she was. Up until very recently, I don't know, man. You know, before me and this person started talking, I was kind of told things about them. Even she herself tried to convince me not to pursue her, right? But like, she made me feel seen. And so we dated happily for some time. Up until, I'll say some years went by. And a moment in time came up where she kind of stonewalled. Kind of became very nonverbal. When I care about somebody, I just want to help. I'm kind of a fixer in that sense, where I just kind of want to fix a problem. So of course I'm kind of concerned because this is out of the ordinary behavior. So I'm asking, like, you know, what's going on? You know, did I do something wrong? And like, I'm getting silence for like months and months. And this was possibly like the loneliest period of my life. Genuinely had some, like, you know, throughout my whole life, you know, even though I felt othered a little bit and never really felt like a cohesive part of a group, it never really brought me to a point of despair. I just kind of accepted it as it was because people still rocked with me. At this point in my life, I'm out of school, working, striving towards my goals. And when you go to school, your friends kind of go their separate ways, right? So she was the only person that I had at this point in time. And those months of silence, it was genuinely the first time in my life where I had thoughts of Alt F4ing. I guess that's how I'll say it, Alt F4ing. Obviously, I don't condone it, and it's not something that I would do. But the thought kept popping in my mind more and more and more, kind of like a what if, imagining scenarios, that type of thing. And it was surprisingly lonely, and it's a feeling I couldn't really escape because, you know, we were staying together at the point in time. And so it's just something that I had to endure. And it was like, this was a person that was unrecognizable to me, in the sense that the person that I got to know over the years we were together just like suddenly ceased to exist. And it was like this new person who kind of, hate maybe a strong word, but just was indifferent to my presence. And I'm not going to put all of the blame on her. There are things I could have done better. But at the end of the day, I always wanted to work past everything, because I felt like that's what would be needed to make these kinds of relationships work. And so that's what I always pushed for. But eventually, she reached a point where she just left. Practically without saying anything to me. And around this time, I started making some online friends as well. Now, I know some people don't consider online friends real friends. I think that's bogus. I will say about maybe 5 or so years ago, I made a group of online friends that helped me similarly in a very lonely point in my life during the lockdowns that we were going through those years ago. These friends were essentially my entire social circle. I lived on a whole other side of the country than everybody else, but still being able to hang out in those calls with my friends in their sides of the country and parts of the world made me feel seen and made me feel part of a group. It was a group that I never felt so closely intertwined with up until that moment. Like, it felt like these people were kind of like me. Eventually, throughout the time of me being with that friend group and us, hanging out together over Discord calls, as people do, you start to kind of grow and change as people. And eventually, the members of the group kind of started to change a little bit. Really, what fractured this friend group was slight differences in opinion. In my eyes, the difference of opinion was nothing major. I have no problem being friends with people who have differing opinions or stances on things than me, as long as the stances aren't inherently harmful to people. But for them, it was kind of a deal breaker. So they ended up dropping me, and I've tried reaching back out over the years, and the response has been middling at best to lazy at worst. So that did kind of sting for a while, because I really considered these guys like my real friends, and we had plans. We had plans as you make with your your Discord friends. Yeah, man, we're gonna go. We're gonna meet up one day. We're gonna see each other one day. Those plans, at least now, have never come to fruition. We don't really talk anymore. But I ended up making a new friend online throughout this time period, right? And again, a similar thing happened where this new friend really made me feel noticed. I don't know how much ego has to do with it or anything like that. Probably doesn't, but you guys can let me know. It really kind of stuck to me when this person said they look up to me and that they're happy they're my friend. We're still friends and stuff like that, but I guess for me though, the problem lies where I feel like I'm in a situation where I still would not be able to truly confide in another person. I've confided in this person before, but it felt like the result was only us growing further apart, kind of as it always is. And even when I say that, it sounds like I'm confiding something crazy, but it's usually just kind of like the things that I'm thinking, kind of like I'm doing right now. And so because of that, and maybe because I'm overthinking, kind of like I do about a lot of my relationships, my interpersonal relationships, I've kind of gotten like that feeling like, does this person really enjoy hanging out with me? And sometimes I'll ask for an ear just to kind of talk or conversate, or ask, when they're free, we can make some plans maybe. And what ends up happening is usually I kind of get blown off a little bit. Usually they're hanging out with other people or whatever, which is fine. But maybe that's a little self-centered of me or possessive of me. But it's not like I'm totally alone. I live alone currently, but I talk to my family. The thing about family though is I'm not gonna confide anything confidential into my family. It doesn't end up well. Anytime I've ever really confided in family about the things that I'm going through or any of my problems or just personal quarrels, that information somewhere down the line, sooner or later, ends up getting used against me. So that to me is a no-go. If you guys have families that respect and value that confidentiality, I wholeheartedly envy you. That might be crazy, but I'm happy for you. So I've kind of been left in a situation where the person that I thought I could trust the most is no longer present in my life and doesn't really want anything to do with me. The friends that I've made over the last few years in person we've all gone our separate ways, and we only ever talk occasionally in a Discord call. Don't really talk outside of these, organized hangouts, and they're only for like a couple of hours at most, once or twice a month. I can't really confide in my family about these things that are bothering me, and I don't live with my family. And the only other friend that I currently have right now, I'm afraid of scaring them off by giving too much of myself. I'm afraid of putting myself in a vulnerable position where I share too much about myself to the point where it scares them away. And the only person that I can really confide in is now absent. So I kind of just keep everything to myself, which is the reason why I made this channel. I wanted to treat it as kind of like a journal of sorts, my own little anonymous journal, diary if you will, the diary of Orias. And also I kind of just wanted to take a stab at doing some of these off the cuff talking videos where it's just a steadily flowing stream of consciousness down a microphone. If this video reaches anybody out there and you guys resonate with this in any fashion, however it resonates with you, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If you tell your stories, I may not give a worded reply, but just know I'll read everything, because I think what helps a lot for a lot of people is knowing that other people are going through similar things as them. And I know that what I'm going through isn't unique. Dude, there's like dozens upon dozens of videos of men and women talking about how lonely they are. I think the world is just a really lonely place now, and we're more isolated than ever. So by all means, is my story nothing unique, but I feel like maybe it'll help somebody else come to terms with their own situation, or maybe find someone they can relate to. I don't know how relatable my situation is though. But yeah, I'm very, very alone right now. I don't really have anybody I could strongly confide in. So I'm doing it on the internet. Thank you guys for listening. And I'd love to hear your stories in the comments